Get More from the Cloud, a podcast by AWS cloud experts at Ingram Micro Cloud.
Hello, and welcome to the next installment of Get More from the Cloud. I'm Tad Davis, and I'm part of Ingram Micro's global public sector cloud team, and I focus on partner transformation. With me today is my co-host, Eric McKinley. Eric, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey, thanks, Tad. My name is Eric McKinley, Regional Manager for Ingram Micro's Cloud U.S. sales team within our IS division. I support the talent of the AWS sales executive leaders on our group and how they in turn support Ingram's partner community. We take the approach of enabling our team to be trusted advisors for business solutions that really help our partners feel like they've got tour guides on their journey to develop and enhance their cloud strategy.
Thanks, Eric. It's great to have you with me today. So looking around the room, we got some live smiling faces, loving it. So let's go ahead and introduce some of our guests that are out there. So Frank Taylor, you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role here at Ingram.
Yes. Hi, Tad. So my name is Frank Taylor. I am the Senior Federal Multi-Cloud Business Development Manager. Been in the business for over 20 years, working for a number of large businesses and small 8A and veteran-owned businesses.
Thanks, Frank. Lisa Varela-Schutz, please introduce yourself.
Thank you. So I'm Lisa Varela-Schutz. I'm the Public Sector Sales Manager and Practice Lead for our Cloud IS team. My role is to drive strategy around public sector and bring the tools and resources to our partner community to help them close public sector opportunities. I've been in the business for probably about 20-something years in both state and local government and federal government as well.
Thanks, Lisa. And joining us from AWS today, we've got Bianca Ramirez. Bianca, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, Tad. Hey, everybody. Bianca Ramirez. I am the Global Partner Development Manager for Ingram Micro from AWS. Wonderful to be here.
Thanks, Bianca. And Brian Sheffley. Brian Sheffley is from AWS. Brian, a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Ted. I'm Brian Sheffley, and I run the team of partner solution architects that support our distributors globally in the public sector program.
Thanks, Brian. Hey, so our topic today, what we want to focus on is AWS public sector and the federal government. So let's jump right into this. So Bianca, tell me a little bit about the public sector business through the lens of AWS.
Yeah, so AWS really defines the public sector as government, education, non-for-profit, and healthcare organizations around the world, not just here in the US, but globally as well. What we're seeing nowadays is really public sector leaders really looking to engage in cloud computing projects and trying to see how they can use the power of AWS and Ingram together.
If you're looking at the federal government, why would we want, or why should the federal government be included in a sales strategy plan?
It's such an important thing for the federal government to be a part of any of our partners' plans, right, going forward. The reality is the current available IT spend that we have is $48.5 billion in fiscal 2023. And then with over 6,500 government agencies that we have out there, there's definitely a spot for everyone to really find their niche in working with their government. Also, what we say it's important is that the AWS Cloud really provides a secure, scalable, and cost-efficient solution to support the unique requirements and missions of every U.S. federal government out there. So there's definitely a solution for everybody.
Thanks, Bianca. So that when I'm thinking about this, and particularly around federal government, we're talking about federal agencies. So how do federal agencies buy? Bianca, can you shed some light on that?
It's a really good question, Tad. There's a lot of different approaches, but one of the things we really suggest is having partners really select the right acquisition approach. When it comes to public sector customers purchasing cloud, they're bound by really strict rules and regulations set by the government, which really makes the purchase of cloud difficult or can limit their ability to utilize the benefits of cloud to the fullest. So we ask that to support customers with effective cloud acquisitions, AWS partners really need to understand not only the best practices, but the blockers as well. Frank, I know from your time out there in the field, you probably have a little more detail as well.
So the federal government has a number of paths that they are able to purchase or procure cloud services. For instance, in the large business area, there are a number of contract vehicles, such as the GSA contract. Some of these contract vehicles are specific to the agency. Now, the GSA schedule, for instance, allows a small business or even a large business to procure or to purchase or sell their services government-wide, including DoD. There are some vehicles that are specific to that agency. For instance, you have the Alliant, which is a GSA-backed vehicle. A COSP3, there's a small business track and a large business track. That COSP3 vehicle has come out of HHS. However, you can use it government-wide, and it has cloud services, cybersecurity services, and so forth. Eagle 2, for instance, has a small business track and a large business track. That came out of DHS. Now, that's specifically to DHS alone. And then you have another vehicle called the NextGen T4, and that too has a small and large business track, which also allows those companies to sell their cloud services. So you have to sort of understand the makeup of the company. For instance, small businesses can actually be 8A certified, which depending upon the makeup of the management team. So these are some of the programs, certifications where that business can have contracts sole sourced to them without competition. And then coupled with partnering with Ingram Micro and taking advantage of our Contracts Alliance program, that will enable those companies to sort of set aside from the competition. Now we look at the buying power, or the time of when it's time to sort of hit the streets. The procurement process is basically made up in 4 quarters. There is the buying power, or the fiscal year starts October 1 and it ends September 30th. So the last quarter is when the small businesses, your 8As, your SDVOSBs, your women, minority, your hub zones, that's the quarter where the government is not looking to, or doesn't even have the time to put out an RFP. So those government agencies are able to sole source to those small minority-owned business, SDVOSB businesses. That's the time to take advantage of the buying power. Now, from the beginning of the fiscal year, from let's say October to around the February timeframe, the government tends to work in what they call a CR, a continuing resolution. So they are taking time in sort of getting the T's and C's ready for the government to go through their financial allocation, how much money will be allocated to each of the departments. And then they will then determine how much of those funds will then come down to the small businesses and so forth. So that's basically how the federal agencies buy, and why it's important to partner with Ingram Micro.
Thank you, Frank. This is all great information. Bianca, let me turn over to you really quick, just for some top use cases you might be able to share.
Yeah, Eric, we've got some really great use cases. 3 stick out specifically, and that's around our disaster recovery, data analytics and management, as well as automated compliance environment for your customers. So when we talk disaster recovery, right, how are we helping your system become secure and redundant? With AWS, we offer tons of tools to build that recovery and business continuity protocols so that you can protect customers' organization without incurring any additional expenses outside of that. And when we talk about data analytics and management, we've got a really strong and complete data management platform and a ton of partner solutions. AWS can really help optimize the entire lifecycle of your customers' data, including collection, ingestion, processing, analytics, storage, and archiving, all under one type of lifecycle, like I said. So really a great topic of conversation with customers. And when we talk about that automated compliance environment, what we allow for within AWS is really a rule-based automated compliance that allows customers to address a number of compliance and regulatory requirements. So we're talking FedRAMP High, DoD, SRG, IL, or it could be HIPAA, ITAR. Any of those things fall within that spectrum when we talk about automated compliance environments.
Hey, that's fantastic. Let's switch gears just a little bit. What are the benefits of migrating to the cloud?
Yeah, so improving the customer experience of services provided by the US federal government is an executive priority, and it's actually part of the president's management agenda over multiple administrations. And the Biden administration's executive order to transform the federal customer experience has really brought customer experience really to the forefront. Has become a key priority for a lot of agencies. So me, you, anybody else, whether we're filing taxes, applying for student financial aid, seeking healthcare coverage, or receiving disaster support, every interaction with the federal government is an opportunity to strengthen the customer experience with rich citizen engagement and these really direct lines of feedback. Unfortunately, there's a lot of legacy technology out there and siloed data, lack of digital skills, and a tendency to default towards this one-size-fits-all design approach has been limiting the ability of the government to meet the demands of their constituents. Fortunately, using technology from AWS can improve customer understanding, create personalized interactions, and really modernize the constituent experience. AWS is working with public sector organizations across security, defense, civilian, and financial services to really create, develop, and launch solutions that modernize the constituent experience. And we've identified 3 key areas for organizations to really improve upon their customer experience. And the first is with application modernization. So many customer-facing tools are unable to keep pace with the growing demand and the ever-increasing size of these data volumes. And also, on top of that, it requires significant maintenance and funding to keep all that going. So many organizations, such as the US Census Bureau and the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, have turned to AWS to migrate their applications and their associated databases to the cloud. And in doing so, they immediately gain benefits in the form of zero capital expenditures, scalability, improved availability, and of course, the ability to more simply integrate new technologies for innovative values. There's a real future benefits as well. Second, there's this real-time constituent response. Organizations are using cloud technologies to augment their response times and reduce user burden. Just last year, we saw the state of Rhode Island turn to cloud contact center and chatbot technologies from AWS to supplement their websites and provide real-time customer support. The Rhode Island Department of Labor and Training responded to a massive spike in unemployment insurance claims during the height of the pandemic. And they did this by moving their mainframe workload to Amazon Connect in just 10 days. Lastly, the enterprise data platform. Many agencies are moving to AWS to build this enterprise data platform that can ingest, consolidate, analyze, visualize, and retain all their data to elevate the value of their organizations. AWS is empowering public sector customers with the ability to leverage cloud database, analytics, business intelligence, artificial intelligence, and machine learning technologies to build a data mesh architecture that can deliver real-time insights to critical stakeholders. A cloud data management environment helps eliminate cost-prohibitive hardware, address dynamic workloads, allow for integration with ancillary services such as contact centers, and allow customers to test and implement new technologies. Now, where have we seen success? Just recently, I'll ask anybody here, does anybody get the COVID test, the free COVID test through the mail?
Yes.
Yeah.
COVIDtest.gov formally launched to the public in January of this year. And when households order test kits through covidtest.gov, they are directed to a USPS website, which is usps.com/COVID-test to place those orders. And AWS worked with the Postal Service to make sure the webpage could scale quickly and allow Americans in the United States, its territories, and worldwide military and diplomatic sites to place these test kit orders. So if you ordered the COVID test through covidtest.gov, you are actually interacting with Postal Service websites that are hosted on AWS, and we help the Postal Service scale to that massive demand. You can imagine how many people signed up for that as soon as that was announced.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, that is, Brian. That's such an amazing success story. And I think it helps our listeners see real world examples of where we see success.
Well, it's to what Brian said, while it's true that cloud migrations can be more complex than a physical server refresh, you don't have to be an expert in everything from day one. Leveraging the partnerships, in particular Ingram Micro, gives partners who serve the federal government immediate and on-demand access to experienced technical staff, go-to-market support, bid capture, and proposal expertise, as well as coaching that really helps you leverage the incentives of the AWS partner network to win and keep new customers.
I just want to expand on that one point. I love that statement where you said you don't have to be an expert in everything on day one, right? You don't have to go it alone. And, not to get too philosophical, I love the proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. So I think that's just a great way of encapsulating it. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about what meets federal security and compliance concerns. Do you have any insight to offer there?
Absolutely. Yeah. So first and foremost, I want to make sure everyone's aware the best resource for both customers and partners that's going to cover what AWS services are in scope for our various compliance programs is available to everybody at aws.amazon.com/compliance. But with that in mind, everyone should know that AWS regularly achieves third-party validation for thousands of global compliance requirements that we continually monitor to help you meet security and compliance standards for healthcare, government, and many other industry verticals. Now, AWS customers love the fact that they inherit the security controls AWS uses on our own infrastructure, and those controls strengthen their own compliance and certification programs, and also gives them access to tools that they can use to either A, reduce their costs, and or B, simplify how they run their own specific security assurance requirements. Customers using AWS can reduce risk and enable scale by using our activity monitoring services that detect configuration changes and security events across the entire IT landscape, even integrating our services with your existing solutions, which really simplifies operations and compliance reporting for customers. Federal customers, I think, will be particularly interested in our compliance program, some of which Bianca already mentioned, but that would be like for criminal justice information systems, also known as CJIS. Bianca also mentioned the DRD, SRG. We operate at impact levels 2, 4, 5, and 6. Of course, we have FedRAMP moderate and high, HIPAA, high trust, ITAR, and a variety of NIST standards.
So Brian, I think it's worth repeating. I want you to throw that URL out there again as far as the compliance one that everybody should check out.
Sure. That website again is aws.amazon.com/compliance.
Thanks. So when we're thinking about security in the cloud and how security is managed in the cloud, I wanted to see if you could talk a little bit about that. And then kind of as a follow-on to that as well, like zero trust is a big deal. So maybe you can explain a little bit about managing security in the cloud and then jump into zero trust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So first, broadly, via AWS artifacts, customers can access AWS's compliance certifications and attestations, which are all assessed by a third-party independent auditor, and that results in a certification or audit report or attestation of compliance, all those documents available in AWS artifacts. But it is important to remember that AWS customers remain responsible for complying with applicable laws, regulations, and privacy programs for whichever geography that they live in. The other big thing to remember is that security and compliance is really a shared responsibility between AWS and the customer. This shared model can help relieve the customer's operational burden because AWS is going to operate, manage, and control the components from like the host OS and the virtualization layer all the way down to the physical security of the facilities in which AWS operates. Customers, however, are going to remain responsible for the management of the guest OS, such as like applying updates, security patches, things like that, the associated application software, as well as the configuration of the AWS provided security group firewall. Now, specific to zero trust, that's an executive order that's been getting a lot of attention lately. That's President Biden's executive order on improving the nation's cybersecurity, which was released in May of last year. And that included a lot of really outstanding guidance for federal agencies with some specific callouts, actually a lot of specific callouts to zero trust. The order required federal agencies to develop a plan to implement zero trust architecture in accordance with NIST guidance. All right, so what is zero trust? Well, in brief, it's an architectural security model that's centered on the idea that access to data should not be granted based solely on network location, i.e., like you're logged into the network, therefore you can be trusted. So in plain English, I think a lot of people can understand the concept that legacy security approaches put a lot of trust in something like a VPN, which will verify that I am who I say I am. But what if an unauthorized user or a malicious actor has bypassed my firewall and is on my network? So if you think of your IT estate as a castle, it really doesn't matter how high your walls are, how deep your moat is, because once that drawbridge is down, anyone can come into the castle. Now, zero trust architecture, the polar opposite of that, is going to require users and systems to continually prove their identities and trustworthiness as they traverse the network before allowing them to access data, applications, and even the underlying infrastructure. Zero trust has become an essential security strategy that helps organizations protect their valuable data in a perimeter everywhere world. Additionally, systems that leverage zero trust architectures are able to enforce a fine-grained identity-based authorization rule set, and that eliminates unneeded pathways to data and enables customers to provide straightforward security guardrails for continuous security monitoring. All right, so what should partners know? Well, first, every federal agency is going to have a cybersecurity approach because that was directed by the executive order. Some stakeholders are going to be consistent across all of your customers in the federal space, like a CIO or a CTO, and some are going to vary depending on mission. Some subject matter experts are going to have deep technical expertise, but are really going to struggle to understand the business needs because they're dealing with like limited resources, antiquated tools, and many silos. And this is another place really where a partner can come in and provide a lot of value. So second, understand that Zero Trust is a security model, not a specific product, right? We don't have a SKU for Zero Trust. It encompasses multiple use cases like user to application or service to service, and of course, IoT. Customers are going to typically use a combination of AWS services and third-party products to migrate to a Zero Trust model across their various workloads and whatever use case they have. Now, third, the total addressable market for Zero Trust is expected to reach almost $59.5 billion by 2028, which would represent a CAGR of 15.2% from 2021 to 2028. In the federal space, the Office of Management and Budget has called on agencies to reprioritize FY 2022 funds to meet priority goals while planning to update their implementation plans for the following years. In 2021, so just last year, OMB awarded $311 million of the technology modernization funds just to projects related to Zero Trust. And more procurements in the future are going to require Zero Trust related solutions. All right, lastly, AWS has the broadest and deepest set of security capabilities available in the cloud today. Agencies like the GSA, whose login.gov product was specifically cited by the federal government as a success story, can leverage AWS features and services to do things like authorize specific flows between components to establish microperimeters and eliminate unneeded lateral network mobility, reducing exposure by reducing privilege access and enforcing least privilege access, enable friction-free access to internal applications for your workforce, securing digital transformation projects such as IoT, and using the enhanced observability of the AWS cloud to detect and respond to abnormal network communications. So if you're a partner and you're finding this confusing, don't worry. If you're still figuring out where to start, AWS and Ingram Micro can help. Both AWS and Ingram Micro have in-house cybersecurity experts who can help you and your customers conduct assessments, talk you through their findings, and help you develop a roadmap for your and your customers' success.
Hey, Brian, thank you so much, and certainly love the partnership. We're going to switch gears once more and really turn to sustainability. So, Bianca, when you're looking at a cloud solution, and we say a cloud solution is more sustainable than on-premises infrastructure, could you tell us how, as well as perhaps talk about where we've seen success?
Yeah, well, when a customer is thinking about moving to the cloud, it's really allowing customers to become part of the solution. The result of a study by 451 Research shows that AWS's infrastructure is 3.6 times more energy efficient than the median of US enterprise data centers that they surveyed. The reality is that what AWS does in their data centers to make them more energy efficient, they're allowed to do because of the breadth and depth and scope that we have out there. So if by looking for a customer to come into that cloud solution, we're really focused on not only how we make our data centers more energy sufficient, but as a company, what we're doing too, and what we're holding ourselves accountable for as well. So AWS is really focused on that efficiency and continuous innovation too across our own global infrastructure. So we continue on our path towards powering our operations with 100% renewable energy by 2025. And our goal by 2040 is to have net zero carbon footprint as well.
So Lisa, tell us a little bit more. This has been a great discussion that we've had today around various topics, but what are some Ingram resources that can support partners in some of the things that we've been discussing?
Yeah, thank you, Todd. So I love the conversation that we have going on today. We've been developing a lot of tools and resources to help our partners to fill their gap, right? So when we talk about not doing it alone or needing additional certifications or understanding how do you move to the cloud and how do you do migration, or really what does Zero Trust mean and how does it work? I like Brian's analogy all around Zero Trust, but when I hear about Zero Trust, I hear trust nothing, trust no one. And we have subject matter experts to help you not go it alone, right? So I do have a dedicated team that will help support the partners around our sales enablement, around technical enablement, around certification. I have 3 sales reps in region, the North, the South, and the West. So if you find yourself in any of those regions, we have somebody to support you. We have subject matter experts, one for state and local government, one for education, one for federal, you met Frank. And then we have a healthcare subject matter expert. And then the exciting news is that we are now going to be looking at a justice and public safety subject matter expert around homeland security. And then we have a grant writer to help support you so that you can look at grants in the federal space, in the nonprofit space, in the healthcare space, so that you can leverage the funds that are available and be able to work with your end users to apply for these funds. We will fill the gap there and you don't have to do that. We also have in place for you a capture and project manager that will work with you. So for example, if you are going to get an RFP and you don't know what it is about, or your eyes are rolling in the back of your head because it's 300 pages long, we can help support you around providing you what we call a bid snapshot. With that bid snapshot, we will provide you all the elements of what's in that RFP so that you can make a quick go or no go and bid on that or not bid on it. This way, we've alleviated you the stress of understanding all the T's and C's, but we have pulled out all the things like woman-owned, minority-owned, set aside, right? Or does it require a GSA schedule? Do you have to team with somebody? So this is a program that is very valuable today that our partners can certainly leverage. And then we have programs like the PTP program and accelerated development. And what these programs do is allow you to start at the very beginning in the public sector space and or go in the middle, or if you're at the end, how do we help you accelerate from wherever you want to start? So we'll teach you about the public sector. We'll help you get your certifications. We will do the training. And so as we go on, now we're helping you to fill the gap, be able to transact in the public sector space with ease. And then we could help support you around closing those deals with the contract products or contract programs that we have in place. For example, we were just recently awarded the AWS letter of supply for the GSA schedule. So I'm excited to announce that. That should be up and running in probably 60 to 90 days. Let's just say 100, just to be on the safe side. And then we were awarded the Omnia contract, which is a huge contract for state and local government that we're going to be able to leverage across the country. But along with that, we have an NCPA contract, a Texas DIR, and other contracts like Frank mentioned, CIOCS, the Seaport. So all of these procurement contracts are going to allow you to close your business today versus having to go out to bid or out to quote. So these are a couple of the things, or a lot of the things that we have in place to help support our partners today.
Hey, thanks, Lisa. I really appreciate that. So it looks like that's a wrap on this session of Get More from the Cloud. Thank you, Eric, for being my co-host today. This has been great. Many thanks to everybody that's been speaking today. So thank you, Frank, Lisa, Bianca, and Brian. I want to say, most importantly, thank you for our listeners. Thanks for tuning in and listening to us. Next time, we're going to be focusing on professional services. So join us then. And thanks again, everybody.
Thanks, Ted. Appreciate it.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Ted.
Thanks for listening to Get More from the Cloud, a podcast by AWS cloud experts at Ingram Micro Cloud.